You're walking through a mangrove swamp at low tide, and something runs across the mud. Not slithers, not flops. It runs on fins that act like legs, stopping to stare at you with bulging eyes like a tiny alien. And then it jumps. And here's the part that sounds impossible. This fish isn't lost. It's not surviving for a minute out of water. This is its whole lifestyle. Today you're meeting the mudskipper, a fish that breathes air, walks on land, and needs mud the way other animals need oxygen. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how it does all that, why it's so dependent on a messy strip of coastline most people ignore, and what happens when that strip disappears. In the next few minutes, we're going to break the mudskipper's life into 3 weird problems it somehow solved. And I promise, this isn't just a fish that can go on land. The mudskipper is basically a living preview of what early land animals had to figure out, except it's doing it right now in plain sight on the edge of the ocean. Mudskippers live in places most animals find miserable: tidal flats, mangrove forests, and muddy estuaries. Areas that flood twice a day and bake in the sun the rest of the time. When the tide goes out, the mudskipper doesn't panic. That's when it clocks in. You'll see them guarding tiny territories like they're miniature landlords, wrestling and posturing, hunting insects, popping in and out of burrows like they're checking the front door. But the big question is obvious. How are they not suffocating? Because a normal fish has a problem the moment it leaves water. Fish gills are amazing in water, but in air, gills tend to fail for a simple reason. They're built like very thin, very wet, highly folded tissue designed to exchange gases with water flowing over them. Take them into air and 2 bad things happen. They dry out and gas exchange stops. And the gill filaments collapse like wet pages sticking together. Less surface area means less oxygen absorbed. So how does the mudskipper avoid the gill collapse disaster? Trick 1, keep the gills wet but not the way you think. Mudskippers can hold a bubble of water inside their gill chambers. Imagine bringing your own portable humidifier everywhere you go, except it's stored behind your face. That trapped moisture keeps their gills from drying out and lets them keep exchanging oxygen far longer than most fish could. Trick 2, skin breathing, also called cutaneous respiration. If that sounds like a frog, good instinct, because the rule is the same. To pull oxygen through skin, the surface needs to stay wet. That's why mudskippers are obsessed with mud and moisture. They're not hanging out in mud because it's fun. They're maintaining their breathing surface. And it gets stranger. Trick 3, mouth and throat breathing. Mudskippers can also absorb oxygen through the lining of their mouth and throat, a bit like using the inside of your cheeks as backup lungs. Which leads to the real limitation nobody tells you when they say, "This fish breathes air." A mudskipper doesn't escape water. It escapes open water by carrying moisture with it. And that creates the tension that drives its entire life. Get too dry and you suffocate. But stay in water too long and some species actually do worse because they're built to work in oxygen-poor, shallow, muddy places, not deep, well-mixed water. So the mudskipper becomes a specialist of the in-between, the shoreline itself. Which raises the next problem. If you can breathe, how do you actually move? Most fish out of water do one thing: flop. It's chaotic, energy expensive, and doesn't let you do anything else. Like hunt, defend territory, or flirt with potential mates. Mudskippers don't just flop. They travel with intention. They use their pectoral fins like crutches, planting them into the mud and pushing their body forward in a series of steps. It's not the same as a dog walking. No knees, no ankles. But it's controlled locomotion. And then there's their signature move, the mudskipper jump. They bend their body into a curve and launch. A quick burst that's perfect for escaping predators, crossing gaps, and moving fast when the mud is sticky and slow. If you've ever seen one do it, it looks like a fish temporarily switched species. Now look at their face. Mudskippers have raised, mobile eyes high on their head. That's not just for the alien vibe. It gives them better vision above water, a wider field of view, and the ability to scan for predators and rivals while the rest of their body stays low. But those eyes come with another issue: your eyes dry out on land. So mudskippers do something that looks ridiculous until you realize it's basically fish eye care. They retract and moisten their eyes, pulling them down into their sockets to wet them. Like blinking, but weirder. breathes air, moves on land, sees above water. So, why not just live on land full-time? Because land doesn't give them what they really need. Mud does. Mudskippers aren't land fish. They're mud fish. Mud is their hydration station, their shelter, their territory map, their nursery, and their temperature control system. And the most important feature of their whole world is something you might miss if you're just watching them run around, the burrow. Mudskippers dig burrows into the mud, and these aren't random holes. They're engineered spaces that solve a brutal coastal problem. When the tide goes out, the surface can heat up fast. When it comes back in, water can be low in oxygen. And predators arrive from both directions. Birds above, fish below. A burrow gives them a cool, moist refuge when the sun is cooking the mud, protection from predators, and a controlled environment for breeding. But here's where the story goes from weird animal to, how is this even real? Mud is often oxygen poor, especially deeper down, so if you dig a burrow and just sit inside, you might suffocate underground. Some mudskippers solve this by trapping air inside their burrows, basically creating a private oxygen supply, so they can breathe even when conditions outside are terrible. And in some species, this isn't just for the adult, it's for the eggs. Eggs need oxygen too, but eggs laid in oxygen-poor mud would be in trouble. So mudskippers set up burrow chambers with higher oxygen levels, sometimes by storing air, which helps the embryos develop. Then, when it's time, the rhythm of the tides helps the young get out into the world. This isn't a fish making do. This is an animal architecting its own environment. And once you realize that, you realize something else. Mudskippers can't just move somewhere else if the mud is gone. Their entire survival strategy is built around one very specific habitat. Mudflats and mangroves often look like empty wasteland to people, so they get treated like blank space, perfect for coastal development, seawalls, shrimp farms, dredging, land reclamation, and pollution runoff. But to a mudskipper, that blank space is an entire life support network. Remember, skin breathing and moist gills depend on staying wet. When wetlands are drained or water flow is altered, the mud can dry out, crack, or get replaced by hard surfaces. Now the mudskipper can't keep its body moist. And can't keep moist isn't just uncomfortable. It can't breathe. If mangroves disappear, the food web collapses. Mangroves create shelter, nutrient-rich sediment, and a buffet of insects and small creatures. Lose the mangroves, and you lose the ecosystem structure that keeps mudskippers fed and protected. And because mudskippers live where rivers meet the sea, they're downstream of everything humans do inland. Pollution, chemicals, and plastic waste accumulate in the sediment. And because mudskippers spend their lives pressing their bodies against that sediment, breathing through wet surfaces, contaminants can hit them hard. Mudskippers are also part of a bigger chain, prey for birds, larger fish, and reptiles, while helping control insect populations and recycle nutrients in the mudflat. So when mudskippers vanish, it's not just one weird fish is gone. It's a warning light. The coastal engine is failing. When people hear a fish that walks on land, they think of evolution as a straight ladder. Fish, then amphibians, then reptiles, then mammals, then humans. But real life isn't a ladder. It's a maze. Mudskippers aren't our ancestors, but they show something powerful. Life doesn't need a perfect plan to invade a new world. It needs a series of clever hacks. Keep gills wet, breathe through skin, turn fins into props, build a burrow that stores air, and schedule your whole life around the tide. They're not halfway between fish and land animal. They're fully mudskipper, an expert in a habitat that exists for only a few hours at a time, twice a day, forever. Next time you see a muddy shoreline, on a nature documentary, on vacation, even in a random clip online, don't look at it like it's empty. Look for movement. Look for little eyes on stalks. And if you spot a mudskipper, notice how it's always doing at least one of these things. Staying wet, guarding a patch of mud, heading for a burrow, or scanning for danger above the waterline. Because once you see the rules of its world, every movement makes sense. The mudskipper survives by living in a place most animals can't. A zone that's too wet to be land, too dry to be sea, too unstable to be predictable. And it wins there by doing three impossible things. Breathing air with wet gills, skin, and mouth surfaces. walking and jumping on land with fin-powered movement and land-ready vision, and depending on mud for moisture, shelter, oxygen storage, and reproduction. But that edge-of-the-world habitat is also one of the first places humans reshape. So the mudskipper's weirdness is also its vulnerability. If the mudflats and mangroves go, the fish that walks on land doesn't become a land animal. It disappears. If you want, tell me in the comments if you could borrow one mudskipper ability for a day: air breathing, mud burrow air storage, or fin walking. Which one are you choosing and what are you doing with it? And if you want more animals that break the rules in ways that are actually real, subscribe, because the shoreline has a lot more secrets than it looks like from far away.